Hello and welcome to our second chakra Svadhisthana um, class, but it's not a flow because it's not really a flow class. But we're going to focus on touching into the hips in terms of strengthening and mobilizing. So with the hips, generally mobilizing is what's needed a little bit more. But we also need to strengthen. And so right out of the gates, I need you to grab a couple things. And I have some really, I went absurd on my socks. We need a pair of socks. So any socks will do, like your little athletic socks are fine. I'm going to use these kind of big ones just for fun. I have a yoga strap, but a belt or a scarf will do. But I would like you to have something. And then I do want you to have some sort of cushion or blanket folded right out of the gates. So if you need to pause and kind of gather those things, go ahead and do that. And then we will meet right back here, seated on our folded blanket or cushion. And I'm just going to start with my feet off of the mat. If that's something that's uncomfortable to you or you want to put your socks on right away, which actually you might as well do, we can do that. But you can also face the long way on your mat for these first couple poses. So you're going to just sit for a moment. Your sitting bones are right on the edge of that small pillow or folded blanket. Notice if you feel like your hips are kind of rounding in, and that's why we're sitting on the item, is because what we want is our hips to feel like they're teetering a little bit, but that they're in a balanced state. We like to think about the hips like a bowl, and that bowl doesn't tip forward or roll back, just upright. And you can usually tell this by, does your core engage a little bit? Are you leaning forward? You should feel the stretch in your back. If you're leaning back, you feel your core engage. And if you're right there at neutral, you might feel a little tipsy, but that's where we're looking for. Bring your left knee, bend your left knee, bring your left foot in. And we're just going to fold straight over the middle of our legs for this kind of Janusirsasana variation. And it might feel different, so some of you maybe don't usually practice this on a blanket. That's okay. Just stay on the blanket. I don't want us to get too fussy. And this is really just intended as a warm-up for some of the movement that's to come. If you can walk your hands forward a little bit, go ahead and do that. And so, of course, nothing is isolated in our body. So when we're focusing on the hips, we're really focusing a lot on those thighs and the connective tissues that connect to our hips, and then, of course, our low back. And so I find this pose kind of gets into both of those places, low back and thighs. Good, come on up. Other side, just slide that left heel down. Bring your right foot in. Like a tree pose. Inhale, and then exhale, lean in. And so we're going to do some movement in this class, but when we're holding a pose, there's some value in letting it unravel. So you might feel one thing at first, and then you feel something different, and something different, and something different. Take another deep breath. Good, come on up. Let's go back to that first side. So what we're going to do is lean to your right. Bring your left foot in. And so you can come off the block. So you're going to kind of bring your left leg in like a saddle is one way of describing it. Left foot over to the left. But the reason I want our blanket involved is because if you can see or feel it in your body, I'm pretty tilted over here. So what I want to do is lift up and bring that underneath my right hip so that my hips are more or less level, even if it means my left hip isn't quite on the ground. And then fold. And so this stretch in our thighs, I think, is really important because those muscles are so big. And then, of course, there's other connective tissues that really can tug on our hips, which then sometimes causes low back pain. Take another breath. And then lift up, and we're just going to switch sides. So I'm going to come all the way off my blanket to set up. Left leg goes long, right knee bends, right foot next to right hip. And I'm sorry, if this just doesn't work for your knees, repeat the other pose again. And then we're going to bring that blanket underneath that left sitting bone so that my hips are more level. Even if that means right hip is not on the ground, that's fine. And then fold. And again, this is as a warm up, so we're not trying to overstretch. We're just trying to kind of feel into where things connect to the hips, in the back and the thighs. Good. Come on up. You can move your blanket off of the mat for now. And then we're going to sit on the mat with our heels off, with our heels in socks. And so lean back a little bit, and I just want one leg to go, and then the other. So you can think of this like cleaning your floor a little bit. And so if this feels pretty good, not really anything going on, that's good. So then we're going to kind of lean over. We're going to go toes down, and we'll just stay on this side only. Toes down. So this rotating in movement. So this is a gentle strengthening. And then up and over to the other side, toes down. Good, and then up, and then this time, toes open to the side. So if it's the right foot, the toes open to the right. And then what does that change? I can feel it all the way into my glutes, other side. And when we think of glutes, we think of hips. Other side. Those toes are out to the side. Good. And then we're going to come on to our hands and knees. Keep those socks on. So come on to the edge of your mat. Whatever edge is closer, so it's fine. You just kind of turn around. So what we want is hands and knees with the right leg off of the mat. So I'll just say right leg, but if you switch it up, that's totally fine. So we're going to take that right foot off the mat, and we're going to draw the circle. See how high we can draw it. Good. And then we're going to do just one more. We're going to have the heel up. Heel down, toes up, circle. What changes? Good. So that's her mobilization and strengthening. Now bring your right leg up, touch your right elbow. And then all the way across, maybe you slide it over on that other side just for fun. Elbow to knee. And then over. Elbow to knee. Over. Good. And then go ahead and bring your knee down. And we're just going to switch. So I'll just stick with the same orientation by turning around. So now my left leg is off, but you can just slide to the other side of your mat if you've got enough room in your living room or wherever you are. And so toe down, this rainbow. And it doesn't matter how high up your foot can go, meaning like in line with your shoulder or whatever, but it's good information. Good. And then the next time that your heel, go ahead and lift your toes. So it's just your heel. What changes? Last one. Okay, now lift up. Knee to elbow behind. Just kind of slide it on that just for fun. Last one. Good. And then go ahead and take those socks off. Nice job. Trying something new. Learning something new about yourself. Come in a downward dog. Orient yourself in the way that feels best for you. Inhale, right leg high. Exhale, open hip. Big inhale. Exhale, cross the body with the knee. Inhale, open hip. Exhale, cross the body. Inhale. Exhale. Couple more. One more. Foot down. Then we're coming over to, you came into lunge, and then you're coming over to left knee bend and right knee bend. Left knee and right knee. So here we are in Skandasana, just nice and fluid. Good. And then the next time you come over to that left side, lift your hips, heel toe your feet in. We're going to have our heels together and our toes out, and we're going to lift the heels up. So some of you have done this before. Some of you have never done this before. And it's a little bit of a kriya, a cleansing. It's a whole body situation, but it does build some heat in the hips. So we're going to do it. So your heels are lifted, you're on tippy toes, hands are down, and you might feel like a frog. If you need more space, tall blocks right here. So inhale like your heart is open, exhale, fold. Inhale, open, exhale, fold. Inhale, ha. Inhale, ha. Keep going. Keep going, couple more. Last two. Last one. Just stand, widen your feet so they're just a little wider than your hips. Soften your knees. And then kind of sway right and left and kind of imagine that your two sitting bones are drawing figure eights on the ceiling. Good. And then just kind of walk yourself over into downward dog. Breathe. Inhale, left leg high. Open that hip. Exhale to your right elbow. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So this wide range of movement. Last one. Good. Foot in between hands, Skandasana. So, in addition to the physical, the hips, the organs that live in that second chakra, it's also about creativity, creative movement, being free to be who we are. The next time you come over to that right side, heel toe your feet through center and come to Malasana, wide feet, in the middle. This is a great place to reuse your blanket or pillow with your heels. I'm going to do that because I can really drop in to the hips. I don't feel like I'm worried too much about the ankles. So lengthen the spine. Take a couple really deep breaths. And just as you're breathing, kind of remember the bowl of the hips. We're not trying to change much here. We're not trying to move the hips one way or another. Just feel it. Maybe twist open. Maybe twist the other way. Let's do one more each side. Good. And then come on up. Once again, this time actually, come all the way up into Goddess. So we're going to come into Goddess and just take a couple moments and move in the hips. And then a little circle of the hips. And then another circle the other way. And then straighten arms and legs. Turn your right toes. Bend that right knee. Find side angle kind of as we normally do in a yoga class. Right foot down, left foot down. And then see if you can get into the hips by dropping your right fingers down a little more. If you need a block, I know I didn't ask you to grab one, but if you need one, grab one and place it underneath that right hand. How do we make this pose more about the hips just for today? Take another breath. Good, and then through center, stand up. Side angle to the other way, left toes, right foot kicks back. Start in your regular side angle, like you always do. It's still about the hips. Our hips, kind of the axis of our body. But how do we make it more about the hips? Finger down, fingers down. Or use a block for more support. Breathe there. One more breath. Inhale through goddess and stand. We're moving to the mat. And actually, if you do have a block, we might want it. I kind of forgot about that. But we are for sure going to want our strap here. We're going to go through a sequence that is super valuable. So maybe I'll make it into its own class so that you can access it later. But it is really useful. Maybe you'll just remember it on your own. We're going to go through it kind of fast. It's still valuable when you go through it fast. So, find yourself on your back. And then push your right foot into the strap. And maybe keep your left knee bent. I think that's a good idea. So this is a reminder for people kind of like me who fall right on the edge of, sure, I can touch my toes, but it just puts too much strain. So even though there's times when it's really fun to touch your toes, I'm going to suggest a strap for nearly everyone, unless, of course, you can touch your toes with no strain. And then we're going to just move that foot forward towards your face. So forward is one way to describe it, but just towards your face. And we'll take a couple breaths. And then we're going to take our right hand around both straps. And we're going to move this over to the right. And then you're going to lift your right toes. You want to make the outer line of your foot parallel to the ground. It's kind of weird. Instead of turning your toes to the ground, you're lifting them up. Breathe here. So instead of thinking about like how far can I stretch my leg, notice what's going on in the hips. What connects to what? How do you feel that? Inhale, lift it up. Straps transfer to left hand. This time, with a slightly flexed foot, bring your heel over your left hip bone. Not over to the side, just over your left hip bone. And that's where we stay. Push the ball of your right foot to the sky. What happens in your hips? Good, come back through center. Let your right leg lay on the ground flat for a minute, just for a minute. Mostly just to let the hip kind of recalibrate. Second side. Bend your right knee now. Ball of foot to strap. Pull your left foot up. So towards your face, straight away. You're not wrestling it, you're just pulling it to where there's resistance and stopping. And then you breathe. Good, hand hold strap. Left hand, excuse me. Open to the side until there's resistance. Right foot stays rooted. And then lift those left toes so the outer line of your foot is parallel to the mat. What happens in there? Lift it up. Right hand holds strap. Flex the foot a little bit. Bring the foot directly over your right your right hip bone. Push your left hip down a little and stay here. Bring your foot up. Release. Let it lengthen. Just rest. No need for the strap anymore. Bring your knees bent, both of them. And I want you to look at your knees, just kind of lift your head up and look at your knees, and they should be like a 90-degree square. So if you're like this, that's not a 90-degree square. So they're pretty far away from you, more than you normally would. And then walk your right foot in that 90-degree square to the right. And then you want the knee to fall in. Once again, you're going to look. You want to see the right knee in line with your right hip. Head comes back down. Left foot on top of right thigh if available. Good. Left foot off of knee. Right knee lifts. Maybe I like to always straighten my knee after it's been bent. And then left knee walks out. Left foot walks out. Lift your head to make sure your knee is in line with your left hip. Right foot on top of outer left thigh. And stay. Good. Foot off of thigh. Walk your left foot in. Just straighten my left leg. And then this time, bring your right foot to your left thigh. Walk your left foot in and kind of let your legs kind of fall. This is where, so it's like as if you were doing like a cross leg or a fire log, but you're doing it laying down. This is where a block could be helpful underneath your left thighs to keep the knees more or less parallel. We won't be here long, so if you don't have a block, don't worry about it. It's not like we'll be here so long that it'll make a big difference. We're rotating our hips, the thigh bones in our hips in all directions, if you haven't kind of caught that yet. Go ahead and release that. Other side, maybe catch the block underneath your right thigh. Walk your right foot over, left foot on top of right knee, like a cross leg or a fire log. And just let things kind of settle. And so this is kind of a tool set that could be used as preventive for low back stuff, or when there's low back, if you did this for a little bit longer each pose once a day. All those connections need to get balanced out. Go ahead and take your left foot off. Right foot lengthens. And then we're going to start upright because I don't think it's fair to assume that everyone can do the next and final pose laying down. And in fact, I like doing it upright myself. So we've been starting with right leg, so we'll start with right leg and I'll turn so you can see. So right foot beside your right hip, just like we did at the very beginning of class. Left foot in line with right knee, hands behind. So this is a great place to be, and a lot of people, if you don't do this stretch often, you're good right here. Otherwise, laying down onto your elbows is a great place, and I'm actually just going to stay here. If you feel like you've got the mobility and the flexibility to lay onto your back, go ahead. Good, and then come on up. So if you're on your back and you've got that flexibility, you can make this switch on your back. Not everyone. That's fairly few folks. Weave your left heel behind, right foot forward. So, and I should have mentioned, if this just does not work for you, try it standing. So you balance at a wall and just stretch your thigh that way. Foot in line with knees, stay upright or back onto your elbows. From here, if you can go to your back, that's great, but work with where you're at. We're not trying to force anything if you haven't noticed. This is really all about softening, mobilizing, realigning. Good. Go ahead and come on up. If you're laying down, you can end laying down. This is the end of our practice. So find yourself in a comfortable seat. If you want to be back on that cushion, great. And just take a couple moments just feeling the bowl of your hips as it is. When we're trying to come into balance, we can't just swing on the pendulum so far. We gotta kind of work with all the strings and where do they pull us and where do we land. So that's what this class was all about, is working with the mobility and strength that we have there connected to our hips. And how can we find it? How can we access it? How can we reignite that balance? Thanks so much for being here.